Welcome to An Interview in History. Imagine a podcast that serves as a bridge across time, connecting listeners to the voices of history's most impactful figures. Each episode is a deep dive into the lives and legacies of these individuals, exploring not just their well-documented achievements, but also uncovering lesser-known facts that shaped their contributions to our world. From scientists who unlocked the mysteries of the universe to activists who fought for social change, each story is a testament to the indelible mark they left on society. This journey through history will not only educate, but also inspire listeners to appreciate the intricate tapestry of human progress. This week on An Interview in History, we're talking with Thomas Jefferson, who was an American founding father and served as the third President of the United States from 1801 to 1809. He was the primary author of the Declaration of Independence. Following the American Revolutionary War and prior to becoming president in 1801, Jefferson was the nation's first U.S. Secretary of State under George Washington, and then the nation's second vice president under John Adams. Jefferson was a leading proponent of democracy, republicanism, and natural rights, and he produced formative documents and decisions at the state, national, and international levels. This interview takes place on April 3rd, 1825. Good day, Mr. Jefferson. It's an honor to have you here with us today.
The honor is mine. I'm always pleased to discuss my life and the times in which I am living.
Let's begin with your early years. Can you tell us about your childhood?
Certainly. I was born on April 13th, 1743, at Shadwell, my family's plantation in the Virginia colony. I was the third of 10 children. My father, Peter Jefferson, was a surveyor, planter, and self-made man, while my mother, Jane Randolph, came from a well-established family. My childhood was spent exploring the Virginia wilderness, which instilled in me a great love for nature and learning.
You mentioned you were one of 10 children. Can you tell us about your siblings?
Yes. I had 6 sisters and 3 brothers. My younger sister, Martha, was particularly dear to me. Unfortunately, several of my siblings did not live to adulthood, which was common in those days. The loss of family members at a young age deeply influenced my views on life. Among my brothers, my elder brother, Thomas Jefferson, Jr., died in infancy. My younger brothers, Randolph and Peter Field Jefferson, had different paths. Randolph was a planter like our father, while Peter Field pursued his own ventures. My sisters, Martha, Mary, Elizabeth, Lucy, and Anna, each played important roles within our family. I was especially close to my sister Martha, who was known for her intelligence and strong spirit.
Mr. Jefferson, let's talk a bit about your relationship with Martha. And why were you so close? Can you tell us more?
Martha and I, who I often called Patsy, were particularly close due to our shared upbringing and the challenges we faced together. After our mother died in 1776, Martha, as one of the oldest living siblings, took on a significant role in the family. I am deeply devoted to my family, and I maintained a strong bond with her, both emotionally and intellectually. Our closeness was also a result of the relatively small number of surviving Jefferson siblings. Many of our brothers and sisters died young. This left us relying on each other for support. Born just a few years apart, we grew up on the family plantation in Virginia. After our mother's passing, I, being the eldest surviving son, took on responsibility for my younger siblings, and Martha leaned on me for emotional and financial support. I value education and encouraged intellectual pursuits among my family. While women in colonial America had limited formal education, I influenced Martha's intellectual development. I'm known for maintaining correspondences with female family members, including my daughter Martha, named after my sister, and my sister Martha was one of the first women with whom I had such intellectual exchanges. Martha married Dabney Carr, a close friend of mine, from my time at the College of William and Mary. The marriage further solidified our bond, as Dabney and I were not just brothers-in-law, but also close companions in our early political careers. Unfortunately, Dabney died young in 1773, leaving Martha a widow with several children. I was already a widower myself, and by 1782 took on an active role in supporting Martha and her family. I even took in some of her children at Monticello. Throughout our lives, Martha and I maintained a deep familial bond. I provided financial assistance when she needed it, and she remained a beloved presence at Monticello. Our relationship was marked by mutual respect, loyalty, and shared grief. In a time when family ties were often the most significant relationships a person could have, our close connection was a natural extension of our shared experiences. Thank you for telling us all of that. Now, what about your education? How did that shape you? Education was paramount in my upbringing. I was first tutored at home and later studied under the Reverend James Mowry, who provided me with a strong foundation in Latin, Greek, and classical literature. At the age of 16, I entered the College of William and Mary, where I studied philosophy, mathematics, and law. My thirst for knowledge was insatiable, and I read extensively in multiple disciplines. Your relationships and family life are often discussed. Can you tell us about them? I married Martha Wales Skelton in 1772. We had 6 children, though only 2 survived into adulthood. Martha, whom I also called Patsy, and Mary, known as Polly. My wife Martha and I shared a deep bond, but she passed away in 1782. There have been discussions about my relationship with Sally Hemings, one of my enslaved workers, that suggests I fathered several of her children, though I have never publicly acknowledged this. I see. Now, your political career is remarkable. Can you share some highlights? Certainly. I was a member of the Virginia House of Burgess and later the Continental Congress, where I drafted the Declaration of Independence in 1776. I served as Governor of Virginia, Secretary of State under President Washington, and Vice President under John Adams. In 1800, I was elected the 3rd President of the United States, and I served 2 terms. Then what do you consider your greatest achievements as President? One of my proudest accomplishments was the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, which doubled the size of our young nation. Additionally, I commissioned the Lewis and Clark expedition to explore the new territories. I also sought to maintain peace and protect American trade interests through the Embargo Act, though its effects were controversial. You worked alongside many other founding fathers. Can you tell us about your relationship with them? Indeed, I had close and sometimes complicated relationships with my fellow founders. George Washington was a leader I greatly admired, though we had policy disagreements later in life. John Adams and I had deep friendships that turned into a fierce political rivalry during the 1790s, and we have reconciled in our later years and maintained a rich correspondence. I worked closely with James Madison, who was one of my dearest political allies and a great friend. Alexander Hamilton and I were often at odds. His vision for a strong central government clashed with my belief in states' rights and agrarian democracy. Benjamin Franklin was a mentor and a source of wisdom, and I deeply respected his intellect and diplomatic skills. Each of these men played an essential role in shaping the nation, and, despite our differences, I believe we all shared a commitment to the Republic's success. You had some definite opinions about Native Americans. Can you tell me about that? I would be happy to. You see, I refuted the contemporary notion that Indians were inferior and maintained that they were equal in body and mind to people of European descent, although I believed them to be inferior in terms of culture and technology. As governor of Virginia during the Revolutionary War, I recommended moving the Cherokee and Shawnee tribes, who had allied with the British, to west of the Mississippi River. But when I took office as president, I quickly took measures to avert another major conflict as American and Indian societies were in collision, and the British were inciting Indian tribes from Canada. In Georgia, I stipulated that the state would release its legal claims for lands to its west in exchange for military support in expelling the Cherokee from Georgia. This facilitated my policy of western expansion, to advance compactly as we multiply. In keeping with my Enlightenment thinking, I adopted an assimilation policy towards American Indians known as my Civilization Program, which included securing peaceful U.S. Indian treaty alliances and encouraging agriculture. I advocated that Indian tribes should make federal purchases by credit, holding their lands as collateral. Various tribes accepted my policies, including the Shawnees, led by Blackhoof, the Muskegee, and the Cherokee. However, some Shawnees, led by Tecumseh, broke off from Black Hawk and opposed my assimilation policies. Thank you for going into that for me. After your presidency, you retired to Monticello. What has your life been like in your later years? Monticello has always been my sanctuary. I have spent my final years dedicated to education, the founding of the University of Virginia, which I consider one of my greatest legacies. I also correspond with my old friend and rival John Adams. I live a quieter life, surrounded by family, books, and the land I love. Then how do you hope history remembers you? I wish to be remembered for my contributions to liberty and education. On my gravestone, I've requested that only 3 accomplishments be listed. Author of the Declaration of Independence, founder of the University of Virginia, and author of the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. These embody my lifelong commitment to knowledge and human rights. Thank you, Mr. Jefferson, for sharing your incredible story with us. The pleasure has been mine. May the pursuit of knowledge and liberty continue for all generations. Jefferson was approximately $100,000 in debt, and it weighed heavily on his mind in his final months, as it became increasingly clear that he would have little to leave his heirs. In February 1826, he successfully applied to the General Assembly to hold a public lottery as a fundraiser. His health began to deteriorate in July 1825 due to a combination of rheumatism from arm and wrist injuries and intestinal and urinary disorders. By June 1826, he was confined to bed. On July 3rd, overcome by fever, Jefferson declined an invitation to attend an anniversary celebration of the Declaration in Washington. During his last hours, he was accompanied by family members and friends. Jefferson died on July 4th, 1826, at 12:50 p.m. at the age of 83, on the 50th anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. In the moments prior to his death, Jefferson instructed his treating physician, "No, doctor, nothing more," refusing laudanum. But his final significant words were, "Is it the 4th?" When John Adams died later that same day, his last words were, "Thomas Jefferson survives." Though Adams was unaware that Jefferson had died several hours before. The sitting president was Adams's son, John Quincy Adams, and he called the coincidence of their deaths on the nation's anniversary visible and palpable remarks of the divine favor. Shortly after Jefferson died, attendants found a gold locket on a chain around his neck, containing a small faded blue ribbon around a lock of his wife Martha's hair. Jefferson was interred at Monticello under the epitaph that he had asked for. In his advanced years, Jefferson became increasingly concerned if people would understand the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the people responsible for writing it, and he continually defended himself as its author. He considered the document one of his life's greatest achievements, in addition to authoring the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom and founding the University of Virginia. Absent from his epitaph were his political roles, including his presidency. Jefferson died deeply in debt and was unable to pass on his estate freely to his heirs. He gave instructions in his will for disposal of his assets, including the freeing of Sally Hemings' children. But his estate, possessions, and slaves were sold at public auctions starting in 1827. In 1831, Monticello was sold by Martha Jefferson Randolph and the other heirs. And now, another forgotten history. In 1893, Frederick Douglass invited Ida B. Wells to lunch. She noted a place across the street, but indicated they would not receive service there. Mr. Douglass, in his vigorous way, grasped her arm and said, "Come, let's go there." Together they sauntered in, as if it were an everyday occurrence, cocked and primed for the fight if necessary. Douglass grabbed a table and chair for him and Wells. As amazed staff looked on, a standoff ensued with waitstaff, until the proprietor realized it was Frederick Douglass, and warmly welcomed him while sharing stories of a time past when Douglass visited his hometown. When the proprietor finally went to another part of the room, Mr. Douglass turned with a roguish look and said, "Ida, I thought you said they didn't serve us here. It seems we are getting more attention than we want." Frederick Douglass spent his life fighting for justice and equality. He never knew the date of his birth. This is something he struggled with throughout his lifetime. Douglass believed that he was born in the month of February, 1817. In fact, records show that Douglass was born in February of 1818. He chose the 14th of February for his birthday because his mother would call him her Little Valentine. Unfortunately, Douglass never knew much about his parentage. His mother, Harriet, was sold off when Douglass was but a child, and he only met her a few times before she passed away. Though born enslaved in Maryland, he escaped as a young man and became a leading voice in the abolitionist movement. Join us next week when we talk with George Herman Babe Ruth, an American baseball player. Until then, take care.